A violent altercation between two inmates here at High Desert State Prison turned deadly, reigniting concerns about the prison's capacity to function as a maximum security facility.
6 people in this video are carrying a combined sentence of more than 200 years, not including the life terms. The disturbing part is not the number. The disturbing part is this. At least 2 of them continued to cause fatal outcomes even after they were moved into High Desert State Prison in California. This is the top 6 most dangerous gang-affiliated inmates inside High Desert State Prison. In this place, a single mistake on the yard or inside a housing unit can become the final mistake of someone's life. Are you willing to stay through number 1? Hit like, subscribe, and comment HDSP if you are ready. Number 6. Vincent Martinez. At 17:45 on August 21st, 2024, inside the day room at High Desert State Prison, a 29-year-old inmate suddenly collapsed on the concrete floor. The alarm sounded. Officers rushed in. 2 improvised weapons were left on the ground. Among the 2 individuals restrained at the scene, there was one name the prison administration already knew well: Vincent G. Martinez. The victim was identified as Anthony R. Alvarez Jr., 29 years old. Security footage showed the event unfolding in only a few seconds. There was no extended argument. There was no long struggle. 2 individuals closed in on the target. When the order to stop was called from the tower, they did not comply right away. The response team had to intervene and remove them from the area. The 2 men detained were Luis Alvarez, 30 years old, and Vincent Martinez, 41 years old, an inmate from Kings County. Officers recovered 2 sharpened metal objects on the concrete floor. Anthony was transported for emergency care, but was pronounced deceased at 18:23 that same day. The entire area went into immediate lockdown. Inmates were ordered back to their cells. The affected housing units remained closed for an extended investigation. According to prison officials, this was not just a fatal incident inside the facility. It was the second time in 4 years that Vincent Martinez had been involved in an event that ended with someone losing their life inside a California prison. We go back to January 7th, 2020, at the California Correctional Center in Susanville. Around 10:30 in the morning, on the yard near Facility C, an officer in the tower noticed 3 inmates standing closer than usual. Seconds later, Vincent Martinez and Luis Ortega moved toward Richard Leyva, 37 years old. Leyva staggered and fell to the ground. The order to stop was given. Both attackers ignored it. Officers used chemical agents to regain control. When the area was secured, 2 improvised weapons were recovered at the scene. Leyva was taken for emergency treatment right away. At 11:06 in the morning, he was pronounced deceased from severe injuries. Leyva had been serving time for a violent offense, but that did not change the outcome. Someone lost their life, and Vincent Martinez was again at the center of the incident. 2 events, 4 years apart, at 2 different prisons in the same region. Improvised weapons recovered. A person losing their life. Martinez identified in both incidents. The prison system forced to activate its highest security response. For the administration, this was no longer a coincidence. This was a dangerous pattern. Martinez's background was already serious. In 2014, he received a sentence of more than 22 years for multiple offenses, including an attempted killing, drug-related conduct, and threats described as dangerous to others. According to court records, the case involved gang-related factors, which added sentencing enhancements under California gang laws. That meant Martinez entered the CDCR system classified as high risk and requiring close monitoring. Instead of fading into the background, his file grew thicker because of incidents that happened inside some of the most controlled environments in the state. Unlike the well-known leaders or the heads of major networks, the danger tied to Vincent G. Martinez lies in something different. He does not need extensive influence to create deadly consequences. All he needs is the right moment inside a closed space, and something irreversible can happen. After the 2024 incident at High Desert, Martinez was moved to a restricted housing area for inmates considered high risk toward others, even under strict security. High Desert State Prison holds many inmates serving long terms, tied to gangs and violence, but very few display a repeating pattern as alarming as Vincent Martinez. He appears. Violence follows. Someone loses their life. He is isolated. Then the cycle repeats. And that is why, on any list of the most dangerous gang-affiliated inmates at High Desert State Prison, the name Vincent G. Martinez is not a footnote. It is a warning. Number 5. Jonathan Gonzalez. At 0:34 in the early morning on June 27, 2024, a night shift officer at High Desert State Prison stopped in front of a double cell inside a quiet hallway. There was no sound. There was no movement. When the door was opened, only one person was standing. The other man was lying motionless on the floor. The person on the ground was Hector Hernandez, an inmate serving a life sentence for 2 counts of first-degree homicide. The man still standing inside the cell was Jonathan Gonzalez, 36 years old. The alarm sounded immediately. Medical staff rushed in and began emergency care before moving Hernandez to the treatment unit. 28 minutes later, at 1:02 in the morning, he was pronounced deceased. The cell was sealed as a potential homicide scene. Gonzalez was removed from the general population and placed in a restricted housing area. In an official statement, CDCR confirmed that the death of Hector Hernandez was being investigated as a suspected killing. There was no large fight. There was no crowd. There were no outside witnesses. Only 2 men inside a locked space, and only one walked out. What made the case stand out was not only the fact that Hernandez was a lifer with 2 prior homicides, it was the person who shared that cell with him. Jonathan Gonzalez was not an ordinary inmate. Gonzalez was serving 28 years under the CDCR system after being convicted of multiple serious offenses in Los Angeles County. According to court records, his crimes were not the result of a single mistake. They formed a pattern of organized, forceful conduct with signs of street gang involvement. The charges included extortion using threats and force, using a firearm during a crime, attempted second-degree robbery, threatening and obstructing a victim or witness, and notably, possessing or creating a weapon while already incarcerated. The court determined that Gonzalez acted in connection with a criminal street gang. That ruling triggered sentencing enhancements under California gang laws. It also showed that Gonzalez was not acting alone. He was part of a violent structure that existed long before he entered prison. Being caught with a weapon or creating one while already behind bars is extremely concerning. Not everyone in prison attempts it. Even fewer have the ability to do it. It showed that Gonzalez brought a street mindset into a place where every action can lead to a fatal outcome. Hector Hernandez, the victim in this case, had been transferred to High Desert not long before the incident. He was a long-term inmate who understood the rules of the system and carried 2 homicide convictions. But even for someone like him, losing his life inside his own cell, right next to his cellmate, showed everyone in the facility how far beyond normal this situation had become. There was no information suggesting a long conflict between the 2 men. There were no reports of public arguments in the days before. Everything happened in a short window of time, in the middle of the night, inside a closed space. For that reason, the entire housing unit went into lockdown right after the incident. Officers checked each cell, reviewed camera footage, interviewed nearby inmates, and sealed all personal items belonging to both Hernandez and Gonzalez. At the time the information was released, no new indictment had been announced for Gonzalez. However, the fact that he was moved to restricted housing and was identified as the only cellmate present was enough for the system to classify him as particularly dangerous. What makes an inmate dangerous is not always fame or outside influence. Sometimes it is the fact that they carry a living history where violence remains an available choice, whether it is out on the street or inside a locked room at night. On the outside, Gonzalez used threats and a firearm to control others. Inside prison, he once had a weapon in his possession. And at High Desert, he was the only person inside the cell when a lifer never woke up again. He does not need to be a boss or lead a crowd. His repeated presence at the intersection of violence and death is enough to place the name Jonathan Gonzalez among the most dangerous individuals at High Desert State Prison. In a place where every door is locked with steel, the greatest threat can sometimes be the person standing in the same room. Number 4. Eric Montes. At 23:12 on June 4, 2022, inside Housing Unit C at High Desert State Prison, an inmate was found lying motionless on the concrete floor of the common room. There were no calls for help. There was no loud struggle. There was none of the chaos usually seen in prison fights. Only an unnatural heavy silence. As security staff locked down the entire area and ordered all inmates to lie on the ground, almost everyone complied immediately. Only one person remained standing, Eric Montes. His name appeared in the internal security report only minutes later. It was not the first time. and it was almost certainly not the last. Inside High Desert, Montes is not the type who shouts or acts unpredictably. He does not show off. He is not the kind who bangs on doors or makes noise to be noticed. The danger tied to Eric Montes does not come from anger. It comes from the way he acts with intention, with a target, and without leaving room for mistakes. According to disciplinary records, in his first 2 years at High Desert, Montes was linked to 3 serious incidents inside closed housing areas. All of them took place in spots where no camera captured the full sequence. In every case, another inmate ended up in the hospital. The first incident happened in late 2021. An inmate transferred from another unit was found with severe injuries, but refused to name the person responsible. However, every witness pointed to the same name: Eric Montes. No one wanted to state the reason publicly, but inside the prison, everyone understood. That inmate had crossed a line in Montes's area, and in this place, crossing that line once means there will be no second warning. Less than 6 months later, another incident took place inside a shared housing space. The victim this time had a personal conflict with Montes from before both men entered prison. When they ended up in the same unit, the situation became a slow-burning fuse. Officers later confirmed that it was not a mutual fight. It was a calculated action carried out in a short window of time, but long enough to cause serious injury. Why does that make Eric Montes especially dangerous? Because he does not act out of sudden emotion. He acts from memory. He acts from resentment. He acts from control. Very few people in prison can operate that way. Most conflicts here explode quickly, loudly, and without structure. But Montes is different. He waits. He watches. And when he chooses to act, he does not leave a second option for the other person. Outside the incidents inside the facility, his past shows the same pattern. Violence was not random in his life. It was the method he used to solve problems. Before his incarceration, Montes had been involved in a major conflict in his community where multiple people were threatened with a weapon. Witnesses said he did not appear out of control. He was calm, cold, like someone who knew exactly how fear worked. That same mindset led CDCR psychological evaluators to classify him as a long-term management risk, not because of physical strength, but because he viewed people as either targets or obstacles. There was no middle ground. Another detail stands out. Montes does not act alone in a chaotic way. He has ties to inmate groups with shared street backgrounds and has been documented participating in the exchange, creation, and concealment of improvised weapons inside the prison. That activity is considered a high-level threat to institutional safety. A search in 2023 inside his housing area uncovered a sharpened metal object hidden deep inside the frame of his bunk. It would not have been there without planning. This showed that Eric Montes is dangerous not only because of what he does. He is dangerous because of how he prepares. He is the type of person who will act if he wants to, and no one will see it coming until it is already over. For many officers at High Desert, the name Eric Montes is listed among inmates who require the highest level of monitoring. Not because he causes daily problems, but because they know that if he decides to act, that day will not end quietly. Eric does not speak much, but every time his name appears in a security report, someone ends up in the hospital. And inside the prison world, there is a rule proven over time. The most dangerous person is not the one who shouts the loudest. It is the one who can stand in complete silence when everything has already ended. Eric Montes is exactly that kind of person. Number 3. Jesse Diaz. At 1728 on September 12, 2020, inside the West Housing Unit of High Desert State Prison, an inmate was found lying motionless in the walkway leading to the communal bathroom. The alarm sounded almost immediately, but it took security nearly 2 full minutes to reach the scene because the others in the unit were too afraid to approach. When officers reviewed the camera footage, one short moment drew special attention. Someone had walked away from that exact area only seconds before the victim collapsed. That person was Jesse E. Diaz. His name had already appeared many times in disciplinary reports. But at that moment, no one expected he would be tied to an incident serious enough to force High Desert to lock down an entire housing unit. Jesse Diaz is not someone known for a single case. He is the type of person who repeatedly appears in different reports, like a shadow that shows up near the worst situations. Before he was transferred to High Desert, Diaz had a long criminal history tied to violence, threats, and organized group assaults on the street. These were not small or impulsive acts. They were calculated actions meant to send messages and establish control. A former investigator once described him as the kind of person who does not cause problems for entertainment, but causes problems to teach someone a lesson. In 2017, Jesse Diaz was convicted for taking part in an organized attack connected to a dispute between local youth groups. According to court records, it was not a typical fight. The target had been chosen beforehand, the location had been selected beforehand, and the action moved so quickly that no one had time to react. What made Diaz more unsettling was not the intensity of the incident, it was his attitude afterward. He did not deny it. He did not justify it. He did not appear shaken. Officers said he answered every question in a flat voice, with an expression that showed no emotion. To Diaz, everything seemed like something he had already planned long before it happened. When he entered the prison system, many assumed incarceration would slow him down. High Desert saw the opposite. He was placed in a medium security area at first, but was quickly reclassified as high risk. Within his first year, he was linked to 3 internal incidents. 2 involved direct confrontations. 1 involved transporting contraband between cells. None of these events were loud. There was no large disturbance. Everything happened at a level low enough to avoid outside attention, but deep enough to make inmates afraid. It was a quieter type of danger, and for that reason, it was harder to control. A staff member who once worked in Diaz's unit said, "He does not need to shout or threaten. People stay away from him just because he is there." By 2020, the situation escalated. An inmate who had exchanged words with Diaz in the dining area was attacked while stepping out of the shower room. The incident happened so fast that cameras only caught the ending. The victim was seriously injured and had to be removed from the unit in critical condition. Even though the first moments were not captured, every remaining piece of evidence pointed in one direction: Jesse Diaz. And that is why his name appeared again in the report on September 12, 2020. From a psychological standpoint, Jesse Diaz is not impulsive. He acts based on a personal system of values built around control, territory, and respect through fear. He does not seek recognition through words. He builds influence through actions. When someone crosses a line, he considers his, even by a look, a comment, or a small gesture. He remembers it, and he waits for the moment. This is the most dangerous part of Jesse Diaz, his ability to wait. Inside prison, where most people live under pressure and react quickly, the ones who can stay patient and choose their moment are the ones others fear the most. Diaz does not act constantly. He leaves long gaps between each incident. That unpredictability makes everyone wonder when his name will appear in the next report. For High Desert staff, Jesse Diaz is not someone they deal with once and forget. He is a long-term variable. His presence alone is enough to create tension. In recent years, Diaz has been documented communicating with organized inmate groups, participating in the exchange of contraband and information between units. He does not hold a public leadership role, but he is considered one of the quiet influencers. This is the role he prefers. Not a leader, not someone constantly visible, but someone who can change the course of events with a single action timed perfectly. Inside High Desert, no one calls Jesse Diaz a monster, but no one turns their back on him in a closed space. And in the world of prison, that says more than any official record. Some people do not need to become leaders. They only need to exist long enough for an entire unit to live in caution. Jesse Diaz is one of those people. Number 2. Patrick Big Pat Brady. At 11:37 a.m. on July 28, 2018, on the Yard near D facility at High Desert State Prison, an inmate suddenly collapsed onto the concrete. The area fell silent. Other inmates stepped back instinctively as officers rushed in and locked the scene down. In the middle of that tense moment, one man remained standing a few steps away, completely calm. That man was Patrick Big Pat Brady. Inside the prison, Big Pat is not a nickname for show. It is a name spoken carefully. Brady is not loud, not impulsive, and not emotional. When he is present, people understand that something has already been decided somewhere in the background. The inmate who collapsed was Donald Joker Pequeen. Investigators later learned that Pequeen had made a serious mistake. He had falsely claimed association with the Aryan Brotherhood and was tied to debts and disputes connected to contraband inside areas controlled by the group. In a prison gang built on structure and control, pretending to belong is seen as a direct challenge. Pequeen had been marked, and Brady was one of the people expected to carry out the decision. What made Brady especially dangerous was not anger, it was discipline. There was no argument, no public scene. Everything pointed to a calculated act, carried out as part of an internal code rather than personal rage. This was not Brady's first connection to serious violence. Before arriving at High Desert, he already had a record that included an attempted killing linked to gang activity. Federal documents connected to Aryan Brotherhood operations between 2010 and 2013 mentioned his name more than once. He was not a boss, but he was known as someone trusted to act when something needed to be done. After the Pequeen incident, Brady became part of a major federal investigation under RICO laws, aimed at dismantling organized gang structures inside the prison system. He was placed in extreme security housing with heavily restricted contact. In 2024, the final sentence was handed down: life in prison without parole. Patrick Brady does not seek attention. He does not explain himself. But inside the prison, his name is not spoken like an ordinary inmate's. It is spoken as a warning. Because with Brady, the danger was never loud. It was controlled. It was intentional. And it followed the rules of a world most people never see. Number 1. Albaro Amaral. Around 8 p.m. on June 14, 2020, a gray sedan moved along the isolated stretch of Laurel Road in the Santa Cruz Mountains. No streetlights, no cameras, no witnesses, just darkness, trees, and 3 people inside the car. Minutes later, that quiet road became the scene of a gang-related attack, and the person who started it was Albaro Amaral, sitting in the back seat, silent the entire ride. The driver, Kevin Medina Lopez, was connected to Comar Vargas Trece, a Sureño set influenced by the Mexican mafia. In that world, some rules are never written, but everyone knows them. Crossing a line involving women tied to the group is treated like signing your own sentence. Days earlier, Medina Lopez had told friends he was in big trouble. Rumors spread about something that happened at a party. No proof was ever confirmed. But in gang culture, a rumor is often enough. That night, Amaral didn't argue or threaten. When the car stopped, he pulled out a weapon from the back seat and fired without hesitation. This was not a warning. It was a decision. One woman was hit and collapsed inside the car. The other escaped by jumping into a ditch. Medina Lopez never had time to react. Amaral stepped out, attempting to finish what he had started. This wasn't an emotional outburst. It was calculated. Without the survivor's instinct to run, no one would have lived to tell what happened. When Santa Cruz County deputies arrived, Medina Lopez was dead at the scene. The 2 women were rushed to the hospital. One identified the shooter as the man in the back seat. Albaro Amaral was arrested weeks later in San Jose. He showed no panic, no emotion, no remorse. In October 2021, he was sentenced to more than 100 years to life. He was transferred to High Desert State Prison, where the most violent offenders are kept. On January 25, 2024, inside a day room, Amaral suddenly moved toward another inmate with an improvised weapon. Officers ordered him to stop. He didn't. A warning shot was fired. He still didn't stop. Only live rounds ended the attack. Amaral died on the floor of the very prison meant to contain him. From a dark mountain road to cold concrete behind bars, Albaro Amaral followed one pattern: deliberate violence, no hesitation, no retreat. He was not dangerous because of anger. He was dangerous because of consistency. And that is why, among the most feared inmates at High Desert State Prison, Albaro Amaral stands at number 1.